Ms. Kritika from India. Ma'am, this is your opportunity to give your address of the day.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm very sorry my sympathies are with you. I'm keeping you apart from your lunch, at least most of you. So I will try and make this a time contracted experience for you, not a time expanded experience as ma'am has said. I know I can't offer you any food or lunch right now, but I'll offer you an experience. Can you all please close your eyes for just a few seconds? Close your eyes and imagine that somebody has squeezed a tasty drop of lemon, lime on your tongue. Close your eyes, sir. You're not closing your, you're not following the assignment. Imagine that somebody has poured a lime on your tongue. Did you all salivate? Open your eyes. Did you salivate? Okay, good. I just wanted to offer you lemonade. I didn't have it, so I thought I'll do it this way. Okay, let us get to the presentation. Unpacking effective personalized learning. So between yesterday and today, we have heard a lot about personalized learning. We should personalize the teaching experience or the learning experience for the student. But sometimes you might feel how to do it. What is the actual practical way to do it? And because I come from the technology background, I'll add the technology perspective. Of course, whatever you are doing in terms of worksheets, in terms of handheld manipulators, in terms of sand, writing on the sand, whatever you are doing is good. I'm adding one more perspective, which is using technology to deliver personalized learning. So can we go on the next slide, please? So there are a lot of misconceptions about personalized learning. So I thought I'll first remove those misconceptions. What personalized learning is not. It is not increased teacher workload. We don't want you to do more work. If there are 30 students, we don't want you to go home and prepare 30 worksheets for everyone. That is not the idea. Next. It is not every child choosing their own game. One child is choosing something else, the other child is choosing something else, and then there will be a total khichdi in the classroom. That's not what we want. And it is not a threat to syllabus completion. Sometimes you might think, if I have to finish the syllabus in 8 or 9 months because the rest of the months are holidays, how do I do that? And also personalize the experience. So it is not a threat to you completing your syllabus. So let us at least put that to rest. Next. So what effective personalized learning truly looks like. So I just put these two pictures. The picture at the bottom, I'm at a very prestigious school in Dubai where students are learning through personalized interventions. And the picture on the top is me teaching at a government school in Delhi in a village called Tekhand village. It's a very small village in towards the south of Delhi. And we are again using personalized learning with these children who are sitting on the floor. They don't have enough infrastructure there. So effective personalized learning is equitable access to learn for all. Whether I have the means or not, can I actually learn to the best of my ability, and can whatever I'm learning, can I learn it at my own pace, at my own level of understanding? That is what personalized learning should be about. Students should be able to take ownership of their own learning. It is not just you as teachers who have to deliver the lecture and the child has to sit and consume the lecture. But it is the child's responsibility to take ownership that I have to learn. So we have to build that motivation. A lot of us have talked about motivation today. I'm going to add how you can build that motivation. So why use technology for personalization? I understand there are constraints. Sometimes internet is not there, sometimes devices are not there. But it is our job to get those resources. If we have to talk to our school management, if we have to convince them, I am giving you the reasons why you should take the opportunity to go and convince your management to do that. So technology is a great container. So it is not the be all and end all. Please don't consider that you put laptops or you put computers in your computer room and sab ho gaya. This is done. My job is done. It is not. Nothing will happen. You'll only be wasting your infrastructure budget. So it is not the be all and end all. It is the container, and you have to get the child to discover the content and discard the container. Okay, so this is what technology is most useful for. You can also do continuous low stakes assessments using technology. Please don't make assessments high stakes, don't make it a life or death kind of scenario. But if you're doing continuous evaluation throughout the year, that is all you need to understand your students better and your children better. And it talks to the 21st century learners. Our children are all born post Facebook, post Instagram, post Google. So we have to talk to them in their own language, in the language that they best understand. So what is mindful use of technology? This topic, this particular word, mindful, is very important. Technology is not going to solve all your problems, but if you know when to integrate it, once a week, let's say you have 7 periods of maths in the entire week, if one period a week you can use the technology to actually get the engagement higher, I think that will be very good in terms of a blended learning. Gamification is used to raise engagement. Do any of you play games, offline games in your class? The day you play a game and you say, come on students, today we'll play this game. Online games, children are fully engaged. Just use it mindfully, which means 20 minutes chunks. Don't give them the access to the game and say, do it for the next 1 hour, nothing will happen. So those are some mindful use of technology. Can we go to the next one? So how do we learn? Another very important thing, we were talking about learning to learn, but what really happens in our brain and how do we learn? So let's take an example. How many of you drive a car here? Drive a car. How many of you know how to ride a bicycle? Okay, quite a few people. So the first time you learned how to ride a bicycle, it was very mechanical, no? मुझे यहाँ pedal पे पैर रखना है, I have to hold the handle like that, I have to steer it like that. It was very mechanical. But when you did it for 6 months, maybe a year, it became so easy for you because your muscle memory got built. So what happened was, riding the cycle, that information went from your front of the brain, your working memory, into your long-term memory. This is how you learn anything. The connections that get made in your brain that take information from the front of the memory, which is working memory, and it goes to the back of the brain, which is long-term memory. That's how you remember something. Which is why, as teachers, you keep saying, repeat, 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 revise, 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 do it again. The purpose of doing it again is so that you're building those synaptic connections in your brain, so that this information, your working memory, gets free for other things, and this riding the cycle or this multiplication table has gone to your long-term memory. So this is what we're trying to do through games-based learning. Next slide, please. I want to pick your brain a little bit and I want to play a game. Everybody has to be involved. You don't have to answer, just think of the answer in your mind. Next slide. We know the answer? Next slide. We know the answer? Next slide. Know the answer? Next slide. Fairly easy. Next slide. We know the answer?
No answer.
No answer?
But talking is there.
Thinking is there. But just look on the screen. What is happening in your brain right now? You're trying to solve, okay. Are you trying to retrieve something from your long-term memory? Are you trying to retrieve that whole idea of writing units place, tens place, or you're trying to think? I'll tell you what other things are happening. Your pupils are getting dilated. Your heart rate is increasing. No, that is happening. Okay, all of these physical changes are happening in our body. And imagine students go through this day after day, mind you. There are things that they may not understand, like we don't understand what was written in Sinhalese, the name, which Bharti ma'am tried to ask us, or whatever, they were trying to write with their feet and we couldn't understand. But children go through this stress day in and day out of knowing, expecting to know things that they don't know much about. Can we go to the next slide? So you're trying to retrieve from memory, you're trying to compute, mental work is there, muscles are getting tensed up. Your blood pressure came up, heart rate increased and pupils dilated. I don't want any of you to fall, huh? Please be okay. Next slide. So essentially, just for those who are interested, next the answer is 408. So now that you know the answer, your blood pressure will come down. Your heart rate will return to normalcy, because this is naturally happening. You are not making it happen, but this is happening within your body in terms of its response of knowing something and not knowing something, retrieving information from your memory or not. So what we are trying to do through games-based learning and through technology is we want children to become okay with this, this whole thing of learning, retrieving information, being okay with failure. How many of you think your students are okay with failure? Do we prepare them for that? So again, with games, games never tell you, okay, don't play me anymore, you're too bad at me. So you always come back to the game with a renewed vigor, with a motivation to do better in your next attempt. So that is what games-based learning does. Next slide, please. Dopamine release happens. I'm sure many of you have heard about dopamine, this neurotransmitter. It is a very infamous transmitter, but it is there for good things also. Dopamine release essentially gives us the joy that, yeah, I have done something. It gives us that aha feeling. But what it also does is, it helps in building these long-term synaptic connections. There's another neurotransmitter called glutamate, which helps in making long-term memory, and glutamate is released only when dopamine is released. So there are all these connections that happen that we don't understand. We just label something as bad, that dopamine, oh, this is such a bad thing, Sometimes people do different things to get that high. But that is not the idea. We can use games to give that high to the students to learn. Next, please. Greater engagement in learning. Next. Learning to better your past performance through productive struggle. I've already said that. Lower stress when learning at the zone of proximal development. Now, what is this? We've all heard about the Goldilocks story. Do we know the Goldilocks story? Goldilocks goes into the house and there's Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear. The same thing is in psychology. This term is used for a different reason. What we try to do with Goldilocks is, we try to give every child the most optimal amount of difficulty level. If it is too easy, they will be too bored. If it is too difficult, it will be too overwhelming. So neither underwhelm the child nor overwhelm the child. Just be at the just right position. When Goldilocks got the just right porridge, she ate that porridge. So that is something that we want to do with games-based learning. Next slide, please. All right. Games, technology, maths. So I'll just quickly show you this. Next, please. Can you play this? Click on the play button on the image. So this is a game that we have. This is on fractions. The game is that the child has to arrange all these flowers in descending order. If they don't arrange it, then the bud will not grow. Only because it is arranged properly. So 12 is there, 13.5 has to go above 12, then 6 by 2 has to remain. So you have to constantly think, relate fractions, decimals, mixed fractions, all of them you have to relate. Next slide, please. So again, create a productive struggle, which means that every child should be working at their own level of understanding so that they can go to the next level, which is what I said is zone of proximal development. And automatic up-leveling should happen. This is where we are using the power of technology. Technology, just for the sake of putting computers, will not give you the benefit that you are looking for. But if you use it in a personalized, adaptive manner, it has huge potential. I'm telling you from my experience of the last 10 years, like I said, I've worked with slum children, I've worked with that demographic for 2.5 years, and I've worked with some of the most elite private schools. Children are children everywhere. I could not find an iota of difference. They behave the same way. If you give them the right equitable platform, they will thrive. And especially in maths, because there's a lot of phobia around maths. As teachers, as parents, sometimes we propagate this fear about maths. We should stop doing this. If from this session today, all of you that are sitting here, okay, let me ask this question first. How many of you here are math people? How many are math people? Okay, one math person in this entire room. This presentation will only be successful if you go back today thinking that you are all math people. We all use mathematics from the moment we get up in the morning, trying to calculate how much time we'll take in our bath, and then when will we reach. We are using it in every transaction. Whether we are looking at time, whether we are coming to the school, whether we are buying groceries, how can you say you're not math people? So please, if you are taking anything from my presentation, if you forget all of this, I have no problem. But please do not say that you're not math people. And if your students come to you and tell you that, I'm not a math person, I don't know, please ask them to bring it in their vocabulary that no, I am a math person. Every human being who is born is a math person. Whether you are taught or not, you will still do these calculations in your mind. So please take that away today. Next slide. This is another game. Can you play? Just quickly, I'll speak you through it. Now this is a different game where area and perimeter has to be calculated. So these are mummies, they have to escape this pyramid, and they can only escape if they are able to calculate this distance properly that they have to jump. And if they don't calculate it properly, then one of the mummy will die and the others' lives will continue, and so on and so forth. Next slide. And then we also use quizzes. So games is only one part of it. We do a lot of adaptive math quizzes, where again there will be easy, medium, hard and extreme questions. Those who are struggling can remain at the easy level. Those who are doing very well, they can go at the extreme and hard level. This is how you differentiate your lesson in your classroom. As human beings, it is impossible for you to know what the learning level of every child is day in and day out, period after period. So that is a very bad expectation that we have from teachers, that you should know your student, na? But how is it possible? You can't, because everybody comes with a different prior knowledge. Everybody comes with their own socio-economic issues at home. So for you to do it all the time is going to be very difficult. Please use technology to help you attain a better understanding of your student. Next slide. Okay, I don't want to do any summary, I just want to show you one quick video. Can you please play the video of the student?
My name is Sumi Mishra. I study in class 6H in DL Devi Model School, Pitampura, ND Block. I didn't like maths before, and also I didn't like the video games. But after playing the game Manga High, I liked maths and my maths improved. I got very good marks in periodics and I got second rank in the final term examinations. So I want to share my experience that it is a very good game, and it gives us opportunity in improving our math skills, and we can also play it in a leisure time, because it will be beneficial for us in the leisure time. We can play games on it as if we want to entertain us, anyone, and we can.
So there is also a teacher video if you can play it. So just see this child, I had just asked her, just for 2 seconds, that do you want to say something, and all this she said without any preparation. Can you see the amount of confidence she is displaying?
Hi, my name is Deepika and I'm coordinating from Delhi Public Schools in Manga High. We started this activity from classes 3rd to 9, and students are really enthusiastic and very excited by doing these activities, and they are very happy and contented after doing it. They are saying that it is helping them in improving their maths. Whatever the topic they feel was left out in the previous classes, they are doing it by playing the games. And I got a feedback from one of the students, ma'am, we will not play PUBG now onwards, we will play Manga High only.
Great, thank you so much. So again, this was a huge victory for me when the teacher said that the student is coming and saying we don't want to play PUBG and these video games anymore, because we want to utilize our time in a game, but in a mindfully created game that is getting them to better their mathematical skills. Next slide, next slide, next slide. So, enabling of long-term memory, in practicing things that you have learned earlier, all of these things I have covered, I won't take much time. If you can just go to the last slide. My details are here. If anybody wants to have any contact, if you want to know the kind of schools that we work with, the kind of programs that we run, I'm more than happy to discuss. Please feel free to reach out, and thank you, and really appreciate how much patiently you have listened to me and all of the speakers. We really appreciate it. Thank you.